Yeah, so Stevie, Canada don't have too many big games as we spoke about, real competitive games prior to 2026 now with the World Cup around the corner. This Suriname game, of course, it's not going to be won and lost tonight. The two-legged game that we've got ahead of it. What do you see from Canada, or how do you see Canada approaching this game? And also, where do you see the game being won and lost?
Well, these games are notoriously difficult, Kevin. It's not easy to go into environments like Suriname. It's going to be an artificial pitch. It's not going to be the type of stadium that these guys, a lot of these guys, play in week out and expect. So that in itself gives problems. And Suriname have some decent players. They certainly have some guys that are playing in reputable leagues around Europe. They have a bit of a star in Geraldo Becker, who plays for Real Sociedad. So they've got to be careful in this game, and they have to, treat it with the respect that it deserves. And when I look at the lineup for Canada, I think about one position in particular, the centre back role, and without Derek Cornelius, there's competition there for that second place to partner Moise Bombito. You've got Kamal Miller, who's coming off a poor season in Portland, poor end to the season, where he's not played since early October, so he's not in the best of form. And normally he needs rhythm, he needs games to be at his best. You've got Joe Waterman, who hasn't played for a number of weeks as well, as CF Montreal were knocked out in the playing game of MLS playoffs. And then you've got a youngster in Jamie Knight-Labelle, who is playing on loan at League Two. So that is a big area for me where I think there's a huge decision for Jesse Marsh. Who does he play there? What can he get out of that player? I think he'll go for experience. I believe he'll go for Miller, but I think it's a big choice there. So, there is some questions. There's some issues around this game. And if Canada take it lightly or they're off their game, they could be embarrassed.
I think there's a number of issues around the pitch as well, Steve, isn't it? That's the thing that we're going to look at. I mentioned before, the game won't be won and lost tonight because it is the two-legged game, but you can certainly put yourself under a lot of pressure if attitude's not right going into this. We both, Steve, you would have played in a lot of two-legged games, and that first 90 minutes, particularly if you're away from home in the first game, you can lose it. You can lose the tie in that first game if you don't get the right attitude, if you don't get the right performance. Certainly, I would always think the first 45 minutes of any game, but particularly over a two-legged game, is the most important thing. So, if Canada start well, if they defend and get the organisation and the units of the team right, I don't see any major problems for Canada. But if you concede and you're under pressure, you're a goal down at half time, perhaps Suriname then push on, trying to get a second goal. This is where the pressure comes in for the second leg. So there's a lot of issues really for Jesse Marsh, but it's certainly one for us, I think, to maybe monitor going into the game on Tuesday night at BMO.
Kev, there's one glaring omission from this squad. It's the Canada captain, Alphonso Davies, who's sitting out this game because of fatigue. What are your views on that? What do you think about that decision from Alphonso Davies in a game? Well, we say it's maybe not the biggest game that Canada will play in the next 12 months, but it's certainly a game that can get them to the Nations League final. It's a two-leg game where against a decent opponent, which is not going to come around too often. What are your views on
Yeah,
Davies not being there?
first of all, Steve, the answer to that question, I cannot believe he's not coming with him saying that he has fatigue. It looks as though it's a personal decision. So when it's a personal decision like that, you've got to respect the guy and you've got to respect the person to say, look, yes, he's maybe speaking to Jesse Marsh and he's having that private conversation with him. But he's been made captain across the summer. Jesse Marsh I felt a big statement by naming Alphonso Davies as captain. And I think the responsibility then as captain comes about as you need to turn up for every single game, regardless. Maybe if it's at the end of the season, Stevie, and you've had a long season and you might need a bit of a break ahead of your club team's pre-season campaign that's about to start, I'd get it. But not at this stage of the season. I can't believe Alphonso Davies is missing the game. And I don't know if, let's be honest, he's the biggest name in the team, Stevie. So there's not going to be too many ramifications going forward with Alphonso Davies. But maybe it's an opportunity for someone like Sam Adekubi to maybe make an impact. But Alphonso Davies, myself personally, I questioned the motives, or I questioned the Jesse Marsh's decision in naming him captain, because I feel as though he's still got a lot of way to go in terms of being captain material. He's got a lot of development within his own game, within certain aspects of his leadership role within the group. So Jesse Marsch names him captain. Obviously, he's the biggest player in the side, but I would question that first of all anyway. Now, this is the prime example why I would question his decision to name him captain, because you don't miss games, Stevie. You know my attitude and what it would have been to international football. I've probably sacrificed a lot in terms of club football to play for my country. It meant so much to me, playing so many games, being part of a group, being part of a squad that was looking to achieve something. And again, the lack of competitive game, Stevie, this has to be treated, this Suriname game, as a major competitive game. So I cannot believe that Alphonso Davies has pulled out of this campaign, or this game, should I say, with fatigue. It seems crazy to me, given his contract status as well, given that he's he's in the last month essentially before he can sign a pre-contract somewhere else, if he were to leave Bayern Munich. So crazy decision, Stevie. And I'm convinced privately that Jesse Marsch will not be happy with this decision by Alphonso Davies to pull out.
Yeah, you have to wonder, Kev, if that contract situation plays into the fact that he's not in this camp. You talked about Jesse Marsch making Alphonso Davies captain. It was to give him this added responsibility and to allow him to mature into the leader that he and most of Canada hopes that he can be. So the fact that he is missing this game, and it's through fatigue. I mean, he could have a niggle, but what we're hearing is it's fatigue, it's tiredness, he needs a break. And for me, that's not a good enough excuse to miss an international game and miss an international game like this.
No.
So disappointing for sure that Davies won't be out there. Jesse Marsch needs every opportunity he can get, Kev, to play his best side every game, every window until the first game of the World Cup in 2026. And with Davies not being there, he loses 2 games. He loses that chance to play his best team, to try and establish a style, a setup, things to build on from Copa America. And at the moment, without Davies being there, if it is Adekubi, if it is Larea, it's someone in the position, I think, that may not be there when 2026 comes around, when Davies is likely fit. So, yeah, a strange one for sure. A little bit disappointing. I agree with you. I think internally Jesse Marsch might be a little disappointed with that as well, and feeling like Alphonso Davies has let him and his team down a bit. And the last point I'll make, Kev, is it sets a bit of a precedent to the players, especially ones in Europe, that they can miss games. If your leader misses a game, he's not there for a match. It sets a precedent, doesn't it? You can miss a game.
Yes.
If you're not feeling 100%, maybe you don't want to come to the next one.
Stevie, two of the points I want to make. I fully understand the fact is, after playing international football, after playing international soccer, going back to your club is hard. Your next game, when you go back, is hard work to get that game out of your legs, to get the travel out of your legs. They're not flying a couple of hours across Europe here to get themselves prepared for the next game. This is a 7, 8, 9-hour flight that they have to undertake to get back to the club. So I get that. But another point is, Stevie, just a quick one on Davies to continue it. Davies hasn't been at his very best under Jesse Marsch. I don't think he's been at his very best in a Canada jersey now for probably over a year, I would say. I don't think he's been consistent. I think at Copa America, I don't think he was at his very best. I would probably say, if I'm being totally harsh, is he didn't have a good Copa America. Even coming back after Copa America, I don't think he's been the player that we've seen maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So maybe he's thinking in his head, I might need this break to try to get myself maybe mentally in a position for the last 6 months of my contract with Bayern Munich. And maybe there's a slight understanding. I maybe get that. But the only way I think to improve is by playing games. And the more games you play, particularly as captain in the national team, the better you'll become. And also, the more respected you will be, as you touched on before, Stevie, within that locker room. So I think it's a big one from Alphonso Davies to pull out. But we will judge it probably over the 180 minutes. And let's see what Canada do in this game away to Suriname, and then in Toronto on Tuesday night.